All rise, veuillez vous lever. The International Criminal Tribunal for the Former Yugoslavia is now in session. L'audience criminal pénal internationale pour l'ex-Yougoslavie est ouverte. Please be seated.
Affaire IT 95.
Case number IT 9516T, the prosecutor against Zoran Kupreškić, Mirjan Kupreškić, Vlatko Kupreškić, Drago Josipović, Dragan Papić, and Vladimir Šantić.
Merci.
Thank you.
Good morning. May I have the appearances for the prosecution and defense, please?
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour, Madame le Juge. Bonjour, Monsieur le Juge.
Good morning, Your Honours. The prosecution is represented by Mike Branson, Nicola Mitan, Bonner Moknes, and myself, Frank Terrier.
Merci.
Dobro jutro. Obrana prvo optuženog.
Good morning. I'm Ranko Radović, and I appear as lead counsel for Zoran Kupreškić. And good morning for Mirjan Kupreškić, Jadranka Sloković Glumac, and Desenka Vranican as co-counsel. Good morning, Your Honours. For the accused Vlatko Kupreškić, Borislav Krajina, attorney at law from Sarajevo, and my co-counsel, my colleague, Mr. Želimir Par. Thank you. Good morning, Your Honours. I am Luka Šušak. I'm defense counsel for Drago Josipović, and my co-counsel is Goranka Herlić. Good morning, Your Honours. Dragan Papić is defended by Petar Pulišević and Nika Pinter, attorneys at law from Zagreb. Good morning, Your Honours. I'm Petar Paković, attorney at law, and my client is Dragan Papić, and Mr. Vrdoljak is my co-counsel.
Thank you. Can the accused hear me? In Croatian, of course. Thank you. This morning, the trial chamber delivers its judgment in the case of the prosecutor versus Zoran Kupreškić and others. In the course of this trial, the trial chamber has had to assess the involvement, if any, of the 6 accused and their potential culpability within a tragic episode of the armed conflict that raged in Bosnia-Herzegovina between 1992 and 1994. On the 16th of April 1993, in a matter of a few hours, some 116 inhabitants, including women and children, of Ahmići, a small village in central Bosnia, were killed, and about 24 were wounded. 169 houses and 2 mosques were destroyed. The victims were Muslim civilians. The trial chamber is satisfied on the evidence before it in this case that this was not a combat operation. Rather, it was a well-planned and well-organized killing of civilian members of an ethnic group, the Muslims, by the military of another ethnic group, the Croats. The primary purpose of the massacre was to expel the Muslims from the village by killing many of them, by burning their houses, slaughtering their livestock, and by illegally detaining and deporting the survivors to another area. The ultimate goal of these acts was to spread terror among the population, so as to deter the members of that particular ethnic group from ever returning to their homes. This tragedy, carried out in a small village, reflects in a microcosm the much wider tensions, conflicts and hatreds which have since 1991 plagued the former Yugoslavia and caused so much suffering and bloodshed. In a matter of a few months, persons belonging to different ethnic groups who used to enjoy good neighborly relations and who previously lived side by side in a peaceful manner and who once respected one another's different religious habits, customs and traditions, were transformed into enemies. Nationalist propaganda gradually fueled a change in the perception and self-identification of members of the various ethnic groups. Gradually, the others, that is, the members of other ethnic groups, originally perceived merely as diverse, came instead to be perceived as alien and then as enemy, as potential threats to the identity and prosperity of one's group. What was earlier friendly, neighborly coexistence turned into persecution of those others. The 6 accused are charged with most serious crimes. In particular, murder and cruel treatment as war crimes under Article 3 of the Statute of our International Criminal Tribunal, and murder, inhumane acts and persecution as crimes against humanity under Article 5 of our statute. Persecution is one of the most vicious of all crimes against humanity. It nourishes its roots in the negation of the principle of the equality of all human beings. Persecution is grounded in discrimination. It is based upon the notion that people who share ethnic, racial, or religious bonds different to those of a dominant group are to be treated as inferior to that dominant group. In the crime of persecution, this discriminatory intent is aggressively achieved by grossly and systematically trampling upon the fundamental human rights of the victim group. Persecution is only one step away from genocide, the most abhorrent crime against humanity. For in genocide, the persecutory intent is pushed to its utmost limits through the pursuit of the physical annihilation of the group or of the members of the group. In the crime of genocide, the criminal intent is to destroy the group or its members. In the crime of persecution, the criminal intent is instead to forcibly discriminate against a group or members thereof by grossly and systematically violating their fundamental human rights. In the present case, according to the prosecution, and this is a point on which the trial chamber agrees with the prosecution, the killing of Muslim civilians was primarily aimed at expelling the group from the village, not at destroying the Muslim group as such. This is therefore a case of persecution, not of genocide. The fact that in this area of Bosnia-Herzegovina, the armed conflict frequently took the form of persecution is vividly depicted in the words of one Muslim woman mentioned by one of the witnesses in this trial. "I do not fear the shells and bombs that may fall on my house," she said. "They do not ask for my name. I fear the foot soldiers who break into my house and kill and wound in a very personal way and commit atrocities in front of my children," unquote. The main target of these attacks was the very identity, the very humanity of the victim. The personal violence most feared by this Muslim woman is that which is carried out against other human beings solely upon the basis of their ethnic, religious, or political affiliation. It is persecutory violence. The massacre carried out in the village of Ahmići on the 16th of April 1993 comprises an individual yet appalling episode of that widespread pattern of persecutory violence. The tragedy which unfolded that day carried all the hallmarks of an ancient tragedy. For one thing, it possessed unity of time, space, and action. The killing, wounding, and burning took place in the same area within a few hours and was carried out by a relatively small group of members of the Bosnian Croatian military forces, the HVO, and the special units of the Croatian military police, the so-called jokers, jokery. Over the course of the several months taken up by these trial proceedings, we have seen before our very eyes, through the narration of the victims and the survivors, the unfolding of a great tragedy. And just as in the ancient tragedies, where the misdeeds are never shown, but are only recounted by the actors, numerous witnesses have told our trial chamber of the human tragedies which befell so many of the ordinary inhabitants of that small village, Ahmići. Indisputably, what happened on the 16th of April 1993 in Ahmići has gone down in history as comprising one of the most vicious illustrations of man's inhumanity to man. Today, the name of that small village must be added to the long list of previously unknown hamlets and towns that recall abhorrent misdeeds and make us all shudder with horror and shame. Dachau, Oradour-sur-Glane, Katyn, Marzabotto, Soweto, My Lai, Sabra and Shatila, and so many others. To be sure, the primary task of this trial chamber was not to construct a historical record of modern human horrors in Bosnia-Herzegovina. The principal duty of our trial chamber was simply to decide whether the 6 defendants standing trial were guilty of partaking in this persecutory violence, or whether they were instead extraneous to it and hence not guilty. At the end of this trial, we judges, we have come to the conclusion that with the possible exception of one of the accused, this trial chamber has not tried the major culprits, those who are most responsible for the massacre of the 16th of April 1993, those who ordered and planned, and those who carried out the very worst of the atrocities against innocent civilians. We thus had to confine ourselves to the 6 persons accused by the prosecutor before our trial chamber to determine whether and to what extent they participated in the crimes perpetrated in Ahmići. Our task has not been easy. More than 6 years after those events, events that occurred far away from The Hague, we have had to shoulder the heavy burden of establishing incredible facts by means of credible evidence. We have now accomplished our arduous task. The judgment of the trial chamber in this case is some 340 pages in length. Accordingly, instead of presenting the judgment in its entirety, we will provide a brief summary of the trial chamber's findings as to the charges against the accused and deliver the disposition. Having considered all the evidence and all the arguments, the judgment of the trial chamber is as follows. Mr. Zoran Kupreškić, could you please stand? The trial chamber finds you, Zoran Kupreškić, that you participated in the attack on Ahmići on the 16th of April 1993 as a soldier in the HVO. We find that you, together with your brother Mirjan, were present as an attacker on that day and that you were actively involved in those events. The trial chamber finds also that you attacked your Muslim neighbors solely because of their ethnicity and with the aim of cleansing the village of any Muslim inhabitants. We find that you acted as a co-perpetrator, together with your brother Mirjan, within the meaning of Article 7, Paragraph 1 of our statute, because you adhered to a common plan for the execution of the cleansing campaign in the village. This, by necessity, was a highly coordinated effort and required full prior knowledge on your part of the intended activities. We find, in addition, that you played a leading role as a local commander. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you, Zoran Kupreškić, guilty of persecution as a crime against humanity under count 1 of the indictment. With regard to the attack on the family of witness K.L., you are charged with murder and inhumane acts as a crime against humanity under Article 5 of our statute and cruel treatment under Article 3 of the statute. We are not satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that you were present at the scene of the crime, and thus we cannot draw any inference as to your possible participation in the events in question. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you, Zoran Kupreškić, not guilty with regard to murder and inhumane acts as a crime against humanity under counts 2 through 11 of the indictment. In the light of these findings, we sentence you, Zoran Kupreškić, to 10 years imprisonment. You may sit down. Mr. Mirjan Kupreškić, could you please stand? Mirjan Kupreškić. The trial chamber refers to the facts just mentioned with regard to the attack on Ahmići on the 16th of April 1993. The trial chamber finds that these acts were all committed by you, together with your brother Zoran, and thus our findings also apply mutatis mutandis to you, although you played a lesser role than your brother. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you guilty of persecution as a crime against humanity under count 1 of the indictment. With regard to the attack on the family of witness KL, the trial chamber finds, as in the case of your brother Zoran, that it is not satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that you were present at the scene of the crime, and thus we cannot draw any inference as to your possible participation in the events in question. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you, Mirjan Kupreškić, not guilty with regard to murder and inhumane acts as a crime against humanity under counts 2 through 11 of the indictment. In the light of these findings, the trial chamber sentences you, Mirjan Kupreškić, to 8 years imprisonment. You may sit down. Mr. Vlatko Kupreškić, could you please stand? Mr. Vlatko Kupreškić, the trial chamber finds that you were involved in the preparations for the attack on Ahmići in your role as police operations officer and as a resident of the village of Ahmići. The trial chamber finds that you were present during the attack and ready to lend assistance to the attacking forces. In particular, we find that you helped prepare for the attack and that you supported the attack carried out by the other accused, the HVO and the military police. You did so principally by unloading weapons in your store and agreeing to the use of your house as a strategic point and staging area for the attacking troops. Your role is thus not quite as prominent as that of the other accused. The trial chamber finds that you merely supported the actions of the others. Conduct which amounts to aiding and abetting and not to co-perpetration. The trial chamber finds that you were nevertheless aware that your actions would substantially and effectively assist the attackers in their activities. You also knew that the attack would not be a battle between soldiers, but that the Muslim civilians of your own village would be targeted. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you guilty of aiding and abetting persecution as a crime against humanity under count 1 of the indictment. With regard to the shooting of the Peza family, you were charged with murder and inhumane acts as crimes against humanity pursuant to Article 5 of the statute, and with murder and cruel treatment as a war crime pursuant to Article 3 of our statute. The trial chamber is not satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that you, Vlatko Kupreškić, were among the soldiers standing in front of your house who were responsible for the shooting. Thus, we cannot draw any inference as to your involvement in those crimes. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you, Vlatko Kupreškić, not guilty under counts 12 through 15 of the indictment. In the light of these findings, the trial chamber sentences you, Vlatko Kupreškić, to 6 years imprisonment. You may sit down. Mr. Drago Josipović, could you please stand? Mr. Drago Josipović, together with Vladimir Šantić, you are charged under count 1 of the indictment with persecution as a crime against humanity. The trial chamber finds that you participated in the murder of Mustafa Puščul, that you took part in the attack on the house of Nazif Ahmić, and that you were actively involved in the burning of private property. The trial chamber finds that you, together with Vladimir Šantić, were part of a group that went to the Ahmić house with the common intent to kill and or expel its inhabitants and set it on fire, and that you were present at the scene of the crime. We find that you did so purely because the victims were Muslims, for the same reason I set out before with respect to Zoran and Mirjan Kupreškić. We find further that you were aware that you would be attacking unarmed and helpless civilians, and that this attack was part of the beginning of a large-scale campaign of ethnic cleansing of Muslims from the Lajva River Valley. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you, Drago Josipović, guilty of persecution as a crime against humanity under count 1 of the indictment. In relation to the murder of Mustafa Puščul, you are charged under counts 16 through 19 with murder and inhumane acts as crimes against humanity pursuant to Article 5 of our statute, as well as murder and cruel treatment pursuant to Article 3 of our statute. The trial chamber finds that even though you may not yourself have killed Mustafa Puščul, by your active presence in the group, together with Vladimir Šantić, you were a co-perpetrator. The same applies for the suffering caused to the Puščul family by being forced to witness the murder of Mustafa Puščul, by being expelled from their family home, and by having their home destroyed. These acts are clearly constituted inhumane acts. The trial chamber accordingly finds you, Drago Josipović, guilty of murder and inhumane acts as crimes against humanity under counts 16 and 18 of the indictment. By contrast, the trial chamber finds that you were charged cumulatively with counts 17 and 19 in an improper manner. For reasons of law, the trial chamber therefore finds you not guilty with regard to murder and cruel treatment under Article 3 of the statute, war crimes, under counts 17 and 19 of the indictment. In the light of these findings, the trial chamber sentences you, Drago Josipović, to 10 years imprisonment for persecution as a crime against humanity, to 15 years imprisonment for murder as a crime against humanity, and to 10 years imprisonment for inhumane acts as a crime against humanity. The trial chamber has determined that these sentences are to be served concurrently. That means, Mr. Drago Josipović, that you are sentenced to a total of 15 years imprisonment. You may sit down. Mr. Vladimir Šantić, would you please stand? Mr. Vladimir Šantić, together with Drago Josipović, you are charged with persecution as a crime against humanity under count 1 of the indictment. The trial chamber finds that you were in April 1993 the commander of the 1st Company of the 4th Battalion of the Military Police. You were also commander of the Jokers. As I have said with respect to the accused Drago Josipović, you participated in the murder of Mustafa Puščul and in the burning of his house. In addition, from your position as a company commander of the military police and commander of the Jokers, it can be safely inferred that you passed on the orders of your superiors to your men. Your presence on the scene of the attack also served as an encouragement for your subordinates to abide by the orders they had received. The trial chamber finds that the fact that you, Vladimir Šantić, were in a position of command during the events in question lends an even greater magnitude to your responsibility. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you guilty of persecution as a crime against humanity under count 1 of the indictment. Under counts 16 through 19, you were charged, together with Drago Josipović, with murder and inhumane acts. The considerations I have just set out with respect to the accused Drago Josipović also apply mutatis mutandis to you. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you, Vladimir Šantić, guilty of murder and inhumane acts as crimes against humanity under counts 16 and 18 of the indictment. For the same reasons just mentioned concerning cumulative charging, the trial chamber, for reasons of law, finds you not guilty under counts 17 and 18 of the indictment. In the light of these findings, the trial chamber sentences you, Mr. Vladimir Šantić, to 25 years imprisonment for persecution as a crime against humanity, to 15 years imprisonment for murder as a crime against humanity, and to 10 years imprisonment for inhumane acts as a crime against humanity. The trial chamber has determined that these sentences are to be served concurrently. That means, Mr. Vladimir Šantić, that you are sentenced to a total of 25 years of imprisonment. You may sit down. Mr. Dragan Papić, would you please stand? Dragan Papić, you were charged under count 1 with persecution as a crime against humanity under Article 5 of the Statute of the International Criminal Tribunal. The trial chamber finds that you were mobilized in the HVO during some part of the period relevant to the indictment, although your precise role is not clear. The trial chamber finds that none of the prosecution evidence is sufficient to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that you were an active participant in the attack on Ahmići on the 16th of April 93, or in any of the events preceding that attack. Thus, the trial chamber finds that there is reasonable doubt as to whether you participated in the attack on Ahmići. Accordingly, the trial chamber finds you, Dragan Papić, not guilty under count 1 of the indictment. In the light of these findings, the trial chamber acquits you, Dragan Papić, and you are therefore to be released. This is, of course, unless the prosecution is to advise us of its intention to file a notice of appeal under Rules 99B and 108, and intends to make an application for an order for the continued detention of Mr. Dragan Papić. May I ask the prosecutor about their position? Do you intend to file such a motion?
Mr. President,
the prosecution will not present that type of request today.
Not today, but you reserve the right to present such a motion later on.
Mr. President, the prosecutor, of course, reserves the right to appeal if it considers necessary after the review of the judgment. But we do not intend to present a request based on 99 of the rules.
In the light of the statement just made by the prosecutor, we decide and order that Mr. Dragan Papić should be released from the UN detention unit, and therefore we instruct the registrar in consultation with relevant officials to put in place all the necessary arrangements for the immediate release of Mr. Papić. Are there any other matters that should be brought to the attention of the trial chamber at this stage? I turn to the prosecutor. Any matter?
No, Mr. President.
No, Mr. President.
Defense counsel? The defense counsel to raise any matter?
Hvala, gospodine predsjedniče. Nema ni obrana.
Thank you, Mr. President. The defense doesn't have anything to raise either.
Thank you so much. Well, then this concludes the judgment of this trial chamber, and the trial chamber now stands adjourned.
All rise. Veuillez vous lever.